Welcome back to the show. We're here with Kyle McAlarney. You probably recognize him. He's a really well-known Notre Dame basketball player, maybe one of the best shooters we've had at the school, and that goes with a lot of good shooters, so it's saying a lot. And we're really excited to have him on the show. But hey, let me pass it on to you, and you can tell us a little more about yourself and what you've been doing lately, and we'll go from there.
So it's great to be here with you guys. Thank you for having me on. I am here in Staten Island, New York. Staten Island is one of the five boroughs in New York City. This is where I was born and raised. From Notre Dame, I graduated in 2009. I went on to play professionally for 9 years, 7 of which I played in France. And I recently retired from playing 2 years ago, and I accepted a job at my alma mater here in Staten Island, my More Catholic High School, my high school. I'm the athletic director and head boys basketball coach. I also work privately with basketball players, training them on their skill development and see where that takes me.
Nice, very nice. Well, welcome back home. That is quite a journey that you've been on, getting to see a lot of the world there.
Yeah, it was, the last couple of years of my career, my playing career, I was searching for what the next step would be. And it was a trying process because, I was unsure because my identity was always wrapped up in me as a basketball player. This opportunity came to me, and my wife and I knew it was the job to transition to. It's not going to be my forever job, but it is the perfect job to transition to. It allows me to be in a leadership role, help out my high school and help and mentor kids and be involved in my local community.
And how was that playing overseas, having a family and going through it, physically, toward the career and the demands that it kept?
So as I got older, from a physical standpoint, it obviously got more challenging. At 5'11", you walking down the street, you'd probably assume I was fit to be a wrestler, not a basketball player. So I worked really, really hard on my game and almost to the point where I destroyed my body. So in my later years of playing, it got a little challenging from a physical standpoint. But the farther removed I get from playing over there, the more perspective I get about how much it benefited my wife and I to be over there and to get that experience. It was just an amazing experience to live over there, to learn another language, to meet people from all over the world, be in uncomfortable situations almost daily. So again, the farther removed we get, the more we actually appreciate it and miss it.
I've done a couple travel documentaries and was lucky to kind of be able to do some work overseas for extended periods over there. And when you're in the mix, you're just kind of going through it, and it's hard to not be caught up on just what's the now and what's going on,
right?
Like back home and the stuff that you're away from, and
right.
or obviously your work and what you're working on first. And so when you got your head down working, there's only limited time for the rest of it, and a lot of the rest of that gets filled with the longing for the things that you're missing. And it's not until you're removed from that situation that you look back and you're like, wow, I really had a lot going on here. I did a lot that I accomplished a lot in this time.
I think it's unique because when you're in those situations, you almost have to let your guard down and open yourself up to people. And it forces you to almost like really become a different person. It forces you to be out of your comfort zone and sort of accept things about yourself or your former self or your other self that maybe you didn't like or don't like, and you have to change it in order to adapt to the situation. So, again, the farther removed we get, the more we appreciate it and the more we miss it.
And you said you had learned another language. Where was that in when you were spending the time in France, or?
Yeah, so I played in France for 7 years, 2 years in Limoges, France, and then 5 years in Orléans, which is a city about an hour south of Paris.
Okay.
I'm actually the leading scorer in that club's history.
Cool.
And we just fell in love with the city. And I got to be honest, living over there for 7 years, I didn't need to learn French. So many people speak English, and you can get by with minimal French-speaking skills. But having actually took some classes in high school on French, and being over there for 7 years, just kind of you adapt, and you try to learn it, you try to speak it, and over time you just get better. So I haven't used it now in 2 years, so I don't know how good it is now, but I was able to kind of be not fluent, but very conversational.
It's incredible the skills you'll pick up, and I mean, man, good for you for putting that work in when you're there. I haven't not stayed somewhere long enough in order to like really have it stick, but in the the times that I've been lucky enough to spend extended periods in foreign speaking places.
Well, I'm just happy that my New York accent hasn't kicked back in.
I'm enjoying that French accent.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the fact that this is my second year back in New York, and I still haven't kind of fell back into those ways. So that habit I tried to kick early on when I moved out to South Bend, and people didn't understand what I was saying. So.
People are they love to focus on that accent, right? And like people are tough about it.
Yeah, so we'd be at a restaurant, and I would order a glass of water. I'll some water, please, and they look at me like funny, like what did he just say? What? So I'm glad that that hasn't kicked in yet since I've been back. So
what kind of other tricks did you pick up over there, as far as like, I don't know, man, you pick up like cooking tricks or like new wine tips or tasting stuff?
Certainly developed an affinity for wine. French food, I guess, a little bit, cooking wise, very minimal. I guess really, man, more of an appreciation for leisure in life. Yeah. You guys, you said, Matt, that you traveled a bunch. Mm-hmm. In Europe, they really kind of take life at a different pace, don't they? I mean, mm-hmm. So being over there in France for 7 years and growing up in New York City, where things are like go, go, go. Right. My wife and I really kind of took to some of the habits over there. We slowed down a bunch. And it's actually made it hard to adjust back to being here. So
that's really cool.
And speaking of which, how was that adjustment now coming back, and then now in a role where you're head of the school that your alma mater, mind you?
Difficult. The adjustment back, honestly, has been difficult. Number one, and I think I mentioned this before, my identity has always been wrapped up in myself as a basketball player. And now that is gone. And now I have to kind of create this new version of myself. And the only other job that I've ever held was I washed dishes at my friend's restaurant when I was in high school. And I trained players all summer when I was home. So this is honestly like my first real job, so to speak. So that's been difficult, just to kind of sort of get out of that athlete mindset, that spoiled athlete mindset, where everything is, it's a very selfish pursuit to be a professional athlete. Now you have to kind of get out of yourself and think of things in a different realm. That's been challenging. Certainly, coming back to New York City for my wife and I has been challenging. Like I said, the pace of life, the cost of living is ridiculous here. But we really kind of, my 20s, my wife's 20s were over in Europe, so that kind of shaped us. And now we're back here, and the adjustment has not been easy, for sure. It's not been easy.
Imagine.
And then you add on top of that, what we're going through now. I mean, in a 2-year span, it's a lot. How's what you dealt with over there helped adjust you to what's going on now?
It's funny. My wife and I actually speak about this a lot. When we were often over there and felt very isolated. No family over there, over there with not a lot of friends to do things with. So we often had to rely on each other a lot and talk through things, and that's really, we've developed a solid foundation in our relationship because we had to kind of just deal with each other so much. Now we're in quarantine and that's what it is, right? It's just we're in the house, we're in the yard, and we're looking at each other and so I feel like we have a little bit of a leg up on people because we sort of feel like we've been here before. And so that's helped, that we feel like we've seen these days before, where you feel like they're stretched out, they're very long, there's not much to talk about, there's not much to do. We almost, that was a big part of our life over there, was just kind of, you go to practice, you come home, and that's kind of your day. So we're familiar with that. For the kids, obviously a totally different story.
Were they overseas? I guess they were. You said you had a 4-year-old and 2-year-old, so they're probably pretty young to really get too much going on.
My son has like some small memory of it,
right.
And we have a ton of pictures and stuff. They were both born in the States, but not much.
Right. You said something that I wanted to go back and draw attention to. The transition, having played basketball your whole life and now kind of faced with this second part of your career and the second part of your life. Actually, it seems really relatable in something that's so unrelatable normally, because there's only so many people in your position that are playing an elite sport like that and playing at a professional level. But now with what's going on with coronavirus, there's a lot of people that are faced with having to reinvent themselves, or are going to be faced with some, with the job shortage or not having a job. And I think there's a lot of people that can actually start to relate to that in a way. It's going to be interesting.
Sure. And I think what I always relied on was hard work. And how do I now, for me, how do I take my hard work, which was physical hard work, always working out, always getting shots up, always working on my game and playing and running and lifting weights. How do I take that perspective and kind of shift it to how do I become a better communicator? How do I become a better leader? How do I handle this situation, better, so to speak? So, I think that for me, just developing the habit of working really hard, that's helped me just kind of make the transition to what I'm doing now, because I constantly remind myself of who I was as a player. I have to be that as whoever I'm going to be in my next life too, because that's what's going to lead me to be successful.
Where did you get such a good work ethic from? Did it come from somewhere specific that you can draw that to, or is that just something that you've had naturally, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think my father. My father works in construction. He was a professional baseball player himself here, and I just used to hear stories about him always running on his own and doing a bunch of things on his own. And for whatever reason, those stories kind of resonated with me the most. And after a while, it became sort of like my identity. Like, oh, he works really hard. And then once it becomes your identity, then you start to try and always live up to that. And then it became habitual. And then eventually it became sort of meditative, right? It's like, that's how I dealt with my problems in life, was I'm just going to go work out and work on my game. And that's a very simple formula to become good at something, is just work really hard at it and get a lot of repetition. So, I think that when I was in college, we had such incredible access to best facilities in the world, so that sped up the process. But Ultimately, I think my father, that influence early on in my life. And I got to be honest too, I love the game. You know, I just love basketball. And I think that I always wanted to play. So it was always my outlet. It was always, it was never a chore for me. It never felt like a job. And that, you know, simple as that.
That's awesome. Well, you know, I think it's fascinating that you went back to your old Catholic high school. I went to St. Joe's in Buffalo, New York, and man, I think that'd be hilarious to go back and a bunch of the people are still around there. I
There
mean,
are a few people that are, there's a few faculty members that are still here. So it, you know, it is strange and and weird, and you feel like, wow, like, am I that guy who just kind of, you know, hangs back on his high school or whatever? But there's a lot of fulfillment with it. I don't want to do it forever. It's being the athletic director is not being the basketball coach. Being the athletic director is long hours, off hours, a lot of responsibility. And I certainly don't want that to be my life, but it's, again, there's a lot of fulfillment behind it. When you are able to mentor kids of that age too, I think it's very powerful. So it's been a joy, and it's been a fulfilling process for sure.
I mean, they're super lucky to have you, man. The impact that you're gonna have in whatever time that you're willing to, you know, dedicate yourself to them, that you're doing now. I think the impact is gonna be major. So, man, don't doubt yourself at all. I mean, I know everybody does it, and it's so easy to, especially to be in a situation like that. I can only imagine. But the impact you're gonna make, and that's what the show's about, you know.
Well, they gave me the job, and you know, I think their thinking was what you're saying, but in my head, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, and I'm sure you guys have felt that, or someone else has felt that before when they take a job. Like, I've worked people out on the court and trained and coached players, and I've washed dishes, and that was it. Never had a real
responsibility.
yeah. So all of a sudden now I'm hiring, I'm firing, I'm managing a budget, I'm managing a collection of 17, 18 teams with 55 coaches, and there's so many moving parts, and I'm supervising games with, you know, almost 1,000 fans, and it's hard to, there's no measuring stick with it either. So I don't know how good of a job I'm doing. So I just try and focus on the kids. Honestly, I just try and focus on them. So,
well, I got 4 kids, and my wife and I say, like, you know, as long as one of them turns out good, you know, you did a good job. You saw that work ethic in at least one kid, you know, that's a success, probably.
It's like baseball. If you're batting 250, you make the All-Star team.
Exactly.
And what have you been doing with them now that you guys have been in quarantine? Are you in regular contact with them?
Yes. There's not much to do, to be honest. So the school, as a school, like, I'm very involved in all the decisions in terms of graduation and what we're doing for the end of year for these seniors, these poor seniors who are not going to have a prom. They're not going to have graduation. So right now in the planning stages of graduation, which is it's going to be virtual. We're not doing much. I mean, we have Zoom meetings with I let all the coaches have Zoom meetings with their teams. I have Zoom meetings with my team. The kids are tired of it. The kids are tired of the Zoom meetings. So, and I think that what I've tried to do, at least, is when I have these meetings with the kids, is like, don't have an agenda, just kind of check in with them, like, how you guys doing, and let the conversation flow. And then all of a sudden they're joking around, and that almost, I feel like, is more beneficial than anything else right now, because the connection, you know, these kids, no matter how much they tell you they hate school, they miss it. They miss it because the structure of it, it's sort of like a safety net for them, and they miss it. And I think just the connection they have with me, with their coaching staff, with their teammates is really important to try and keep. And there's nothing that can replace being in person, no matter how many Zoom meetings you have. So to be honest, we're doing some Zoom meetings, but there's not much else we can do.
Yeah, I did a virtual karate class today. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, but it's just not the same. I mean, like, you can feel like you're doing the formations and the combos and the moves, but I mean, there's just not gonna be anything like. And karate's already hard enough because you're only going, like, you're not really fighting someone, so you don't really ever know full speed. So it's like we're getting even farther away from it. I can't imagine trying to, like, coach someone's shot via Zoom.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't, and I've had people. So I'm actually working with a couple pre-draft prospects too, who are going through the NBA draft process.
Cool.
Again, that's sort of what I've done outside of everything, is work with basketball players privately, and there's not much I can do virtually.
Right.
I've filmed myself doing some drills with correct form and technique. I've given them ideas. I've tried to break down some film with them, but I don't. Again, the connection, and I tell them straight up, like, for me, the most important thing is that we would get on the court together, so that I can see how you move, I can see your body language, I can feel it, and you can feel me, and we can figure things out from there. But virtually is less than ideal for sure.
Right. I mean, I guess at least we have it, though. This has been a pretty cool blessing to be able to catch up with people. And I'm sure, had we not been in this position, we probably wouldn't be here lucky enough to talk to you and talking to old friends and getting some cool people to talk about the Notre Dame community and what we're doing. There's at least some silver linings.
For sure.
But talking about, coronavirus a little bit, are you guys starting to plan out what a season would look like? Are there some conversations being had? I mean, I know we're early, so, or anything that you've heard that interests you? And we've heard all these different strategies, and I've got different opinions of them myself. But
you know what? So everything comes from the top down. So the state of New York canceled all schools, so there's no sports. Right. But let's just say that the state of New York said that, okay, schools can resume. Well, then it will go to, because I'm a private Catholic school, it will go to each diocese of New York. Does the diocese say it's okay? Okay, the diocese said it's okay. Then it goes to the principal's council of the diocese. They say it's okay, then it's okay. Then it goes to each school's individual principal. Are they willing to take that risk? Then it goes to the parents. Are the parents willing to take that risk of letting their kids play sports? So I think that we are far away from having organized sports, at least here in New York City, where we know that, we are the epicenter of the coronavirus. Yeah. So they are saying that the fall sports are going to be impacted. So, which is football, volleyball, soccer, cross country, I mean, some pretty big sports. And, I just don't know. I don't, in terms of a strategy, what can you do with football? I mean, the idea of the game is to hit people and get close to people. Right. And that brings a lot of fans to campus. So what can you do? I don't know. Right. I wish I had an answer, but I don't. I just follow what they tell me is appropriate.
And another question is, especially with schools starting to open, in private schools, people have been a little upset because of them having to pay money and not getting it back if their kids aren't attending in person. Is that something that you guys have had to deal with in any capacity?
So I'm not privy to really those conversations at that, let's just say, our board is certainly having. But I can tell you, when this first came out, having been at board meetings of our school and everything, that was the first thing that I was worried about. We are a tuition-based budget, and we are a small Catholic high school. And For Catholic schools in general now are suffering because the cost of education and
even before.
Correct. So what's that going to look like 2-3 months now when businesses are closing, small businesses are closing, people are hurting financially, and their kids aren't going to school? And why do you send your kid to Catholic school? Well, safety, security, discipline. Well, if you're not going there, then you're not getting that, right? So if everything's going to be virtual, I would venture to say a lot of people are going to send their kids to public school, where otherwise they would send them to Catholic school because it's free. So I envision that it's going to hurt Catholic schools on a grand scale. And luckily, I think that I think people are paying tuition, because our teachers are working really hard to come up with the curriculum for these kids and get them ready for their finals. But they've canceled all the standardized tests as well. So, that's an unknown also. It's an unknown, but it's just, that's a scary reality of Catholic education for sure.
Oh man, well, I got so many questions, but I don't want to keep you here too long. Let's make sure we get back to Notre Dame too. Let's talk a little Notre Dame.
Yeah, please. Let's talk about some more uplifting stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I'd love to hear if you have like a favorite Notre Dame story, whether it's on the court or in the dorm or wherever it is. I always like to put people on the spot and see like what comes to mind.
Well, what audience are we telling this to?
So, I mean,
we've got an editor.
Everyone here, yes. Anything that you feel that you don't want, we can always not include. But also, we like to tell fun, crazy stories. My intention is to tell some silly stories, and we had lots of fun back in the day ourselves. So
yeah, it's such a tough question. What's a good story?
Maybe not you, but maybe a guy you know.
Okay. Right.
We'll just call him Lyle.
Yeah. It can be on the court. It can be off the court. It depends. Anything that comes to mind. And if you want to think about it, we can come back to it too.
You know what? I have so many that are kind of coming to me. If you take the conversation in a direction, I'll go from there. But for you to say pick your favorite stories is
a host.
Well, I'll tell you, my freshman year, Brady Quinn was the quarterback, and Brady Quinn at that point, he was like a celebrity. He was like a celebrity. This was right after, I think, Wedding Crashers came out. Vince Vaughn came to campus and wound up at the same party that we were at he came to hang out with Brady.
Wow.
So I wound up, I guess having a beer with Vince Vaughn or whatever. I don't know. That was actually like one of my first nights out in South Bend. So, that there's one, but many more that maybe I'm embarrassed to share. But,
the show is called ND Generates. However, sometimes you can also construe it as ND Generates.
Well, I'd be perfect for that show, because I'm the one who got suspended from the university.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot that. I can't believe I forgot that story.
Redemption story, though.
You're in.
That's true. That's true.
You're in familiar company, because I also had my run-ins with Res Life. So yes. I could talk Res Life stories all day long. One of my favorite, to bring up another guest on the show, a good friend of ours. I don't know that he has the official record, but I think he went 7 times to Res Life, and
God.
One of my favorite, and he graduated too. So I think it's like the going and graduating. Like, I heard this stat, and I don't know where I got this from. So I'm sure it's been embellished over the years, but it was something like at one of the hearings they told him these numbers, and it was like, of everybody that goes to Notre Dame, like something like under 5%, like maybe 2.5%, like some really low number actually ever goes to res life, like
Jeez.
to have to deal with it. And then of that, like whatever 2.5 to 5%, let's say it is, like a very, very minuscule, like under 1%, goes a second time and like still graduate. And then this dude went 7 times.
I have sort of a funny story. So after my suspension, when I came back in the summer, and most of the team was out there, and we went out, and I think we wound up at Finney's.
Yeah, classic.
But I was, because of everything that happened, and mainly because it was like all over ESPN and sort of gave me this name or whatever, I developed anxiety.
Oh man.
So, and I'm a very like type A person, and like high energy, high motor as is, but I developed anxiety and I would get panic attacks. So we're out, and I think we're at Finney's, and for whatever reason, I start getting like I'm having a panic attack, and I leave. I just leave the bar, and I say I'm going to walk back to campus, and without even telling any of my teammates. So they figure I made it home, whatever, and I dropped my phone, and I didn't realize I dropped my phone.
Oh no.
So I go to my dorm and I fall asleep, and I don't wake up until about noon, 1 p.m. the next day, and I'm looking around for my phone. Well, I must have dropped it on the way. So I retrace my steps back to my buddy's apartment at where did he live? I forget. I forget where he lived, somewhere close to downtown. And I knock on the door, and I'm sweating, and I'm like, man, I can't find my phone. I'm pissed off. He opens the door, and he's like, oh my God, you're alive. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we have your phone. Some lady found your phone by the river.
No.
And she called home, so she called your mom. Your mom called Coach Bray. So I'm like, oh shit. So I'm like, oh my God. So I call my parents. My mom flips out. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, Coach Bray come see me in my office.
Oh my God.
You, I had just gotten back to campus after being suspended from the university.
Wow.
And no wonder why you got anxiety. I mean, I wanted to tell you, I can relate to that campus-induced anxiety situation.
But and
a lot of pressure, and I didn't have nearly as much pressure as you did.
He read me the riot act, and I was just like, listen, Coach, I was getting out of there. Like I just dropped my phone, and so I had to tread carefully for the next 2 years. But so that could have went south really, really quickly.
Great story. I love it. That one goes down. That's one of my favorites ever. Talking to everybody. I really appreciate that. And
I think Coach Bray thought I was dead. I think they thought I would drown in the river.
Genuinely scared. There was a story when we were there. There was a kid who did go into the river and was drunk and like went through the river, and then the cops were trying to help him, and he was too drunk, so he ran and broke into a house by the river, and then into the house, and the cops like released the dog on him, so he like got bit by the dog in the bushes. And I'm not gonna say any names, but this person was then a RA the next year. Meanwhile, the smell of marijuana in the hallway, and everybody's going to jail. Like, Anyway, we love Notre Dame. It's great. And luckily, that the attitudes are changing in respect to a lot of these things. Anyway, we'll leave that for another conversation. But I appreciate you being honest with us. That's the best. That's what this show's about. We're gonna tell
many more where those come from.
All right,
we'll have to have a follow-up segment.
We'll certainly. Well, let's talk a little bit about the charity too. I don't know if there was anything specifically that you wanted to highlight. I think we wanted to talk about Bread of Life, right? But we also wanted to ask about I know you're doing a lot in the community there too. So anything we could highlight for you that you guys are doing there?
Well, I honestly think the Bread of Life Drive is it's incredible what they do, and obviously now with everything going on, they've had to adapt. So they went sort of, I guess, virtual, and they're trying to raise $100,000 to support the food pantries across Staten Island. And if you know anything about the Bread of Life Drive and the Notre Dame Club of Staten Island, I think you actually have to be there to really experience it and how much food they actually get donated and how much they support these local food pantries. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So you can go on the website, statenisland.undclub.org, statenisland.undclub.org, and help donate to get them to 100,000. And maybe
Awesome.
they'll exceed that number. But it's a really special collection of people. A lot of them didn't even go to Notre Dame. We have a huge fan base here in Staten Island of Notre Dame fans, and they believe in the school, they believe in the mission, and sort of, I think you guys would, like I said, with being when I played overseas, the farther you're removed from Notre Dame, the more you appreciate the fact that you went there and graduated from there, just by interacting with people. And so many people here that didn't go there, but just they're part of the Notre Dame club, and they're so passionate about the place. It makes you appreciate that you had that opportunity. It certainly makes me appreciate that I have that opportunity. So right now for me, that is the big one, is the Bread of Life Drive.
Great.
We're trying to get to $100,000 right now. So
yeah, we that was our first episode. We talked with Joe. He's the best. We really love him. He's got great stories. The guy remembers every touchdown of every football game he's watched. I love those little kind of things like that. Like, it's so cool. And it's a great cause that he does. So if you're watching this and you're local, get out there and do anything you can to help. In the least, I think the motto was, one can makes a difference, if I remember from the show when Joe was on it. So even just one can helps. And anybody that's in other places, we have the links on our site, I believe, to where to actually reach out to Joe directly if you wanted to make a donation from somewhere outside of the region. So it's a great cause, and one we really believe in. One we're going to try to get moving out here in LA too. We've been doing a little work trying to get that going, see if we can do some support on my end.
Yeah, we linked Matt up with Malik, so we have Malik Zaire on.
Nice.
And he wanted to get involved, so set him up. So we're going to be working with the LA Food Bank to do something big out there. So
That's great.
Yeah. Joe's influence goes coast to coast.
It certainly does.
Yeah,
it certainly does.
Great
He'd be happy to hear that too.
Yeah, it's an amazing day.
I got one more question, because you had mentioned one thing that you had mentioned that stuck out, and I feel the same way. You did it. You worked so hard for the love of basketball and the love of the sport, and I feel like anybody that has that love of that sport, not saying mine's anywhere near the passion and the hard work that you put into it, but I've loved that game since I was a kid myself. And are you watching Last Dance? Because I know everybody watching basketball.
Of course.
What do you think? It's the best, right? I mean,
well, I'll tell you, up until last episode, there were two things that were bothering me. The first thing is, listen, Jerry Krause is dead, and he doesn't have a chance to defend himself.
I think that's a really good point. They were just going at him.
They're still going at him.
Yep.
They're still going at him. Are we sure that he was like this bad of a GM? Because I don't know. And there's always two sides to a story. So for me, that's one thing that I'm not buying into, is the whole narrative that Scotty and Jerry Krause and Michael and Jerry Krause and Phil. Listen, he's dead. He can't defend himself. So
that's a great point. I'm not as in tune. I'm a lifelong Knicks fan myself. I don't know. And maybe that's where you're going to, and I won't cut.
Well, they finally brought the Knicks into the picture.
But
forward New York Knicks.
When they were talking about him early on, I was kind of I had to look it up and see if he was alive or dead. But my assumption was immediately, oh, this guy must be dead, the way that they're talking about him right now.
Right.
That's really astute.
And then the second thing that I guess they touched on, well, they did talk about it last episode, was Jordan's gambling. I thought they weren't gonna get into his gambling issues or whatever, and I just thought that wouldn't be a true picture of him to fully understand him. But they did last episode. So I guess the only thing for me is like the Jerry Krause thing. I'm just not buying, because the guy doesn't have a chance to defend himself. You know, he was for all intents and purposes the orchestrator of that. So he does deserve some credit. He does deserve some credit. So that's all I would say about it. But it's phenomenal television.
Yeah, as a bitter Knicks fan and a filmmaker, worked on some documentaries out here, and I just didn't want Michael Jordan to have that as well. I didn't want him to have this great doc to go with the great career and all the wins. Like I'm the bitter Knicks fan, and he's got it. It's one of the best sports docs.
Well, he's incredible though. He's incredible. Yeah. He's just like it's captivating, like how good looking of a basketball player he is.
Yeah.
Like he's like, "What's up, buddy? How you doing?"
Hey, Shangley.
I just wanted to give you a hug.
Oh, thanks, kiddo.
Oh, nice.
I appreciate it.
See, we have those moments. That's what makes
Sorry,
but MJ is just like, the best looking basketball player. Like you could just kind of watch him, you're mesmerized by him like all day. It's incredible. It's incredible.
And I said I was going to stop asking questions, but now it led me to one more, because you're one of the best shooters I've ever seen shoot the ball myself. Who do you look up to? Who are some of your great shooters? Do you have one that always comes to mind, or what did you learn from?
Chris Mullin when I was younger.
Nice.
Just because he's a New York guy.
St. Johnny's.
Yeah.
Nice.
As I guess JJ Redick a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Steve Nash. Guys who I felt I could sort of emulate a little bit. Those were definitely the guys. But I tried to Ray Allen, a lot of Ray Allen as well. I mean, for me, shooting was like how I was going to survive in the game. As a 5'11" kid who really could only dunk in warm-ups, if I was really amped up and it was the right conditions and I ate right,
Yeah.
How am I going to survive? And for me, it was, well, I have to be able to shoot it better than anybody. I have to be a weapon on the court, no matter where I am. And that was really it. And it became, it became who I was, and I just kind of relished that role and developed a mindset. I think that's what really goes on overlooked, I guess, is when you see a great shooter, a really great shooter, there's a cockiness, a confidence behind there that is unmatched, because you have to have a short memory. You have to be willing to take shots from all over the court. That's what makes you dangerous. And I actually, the way I phrase it is, you have to be an assassin. An assassin is someone who's ready to strike at all times. He's sort of lurking in the dark behind every corner, and all of a sudden he pops out to kill you. That's what a real elite shooter does.
Right.
It was a blast watching you play out there, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. Let me tell you, I miss. There's nothing like playing for Notre Dame. There is nothing like it, and unfortunately, you graduate from there, it's all downhill, because the playing for Notre Dame, there's just nothing like it. And I got suspended and I came back to Notre Dame, and the reason why I came back was because I wanted to be part of one of the great stories of Notre Dame. Watching Rudy growing up, and you still watch Rudy, you can't help but cry, and I wanted to have some sort of an impact on the Notre Dame community. I wanted that to be my story. And I love the place so much, man. And I say that, and I wasn't like that my first 2 years there. When I got suspended and I came back, it completely flipped my appreciation and my how grateful I was to be there. So I love everything about it. I love everybody who's associated with it. It's biggest blessing of my life for sure.
Amen.
Besides my kids, of course.
Yeah, amen. And what was your favorite moment on the court
At Notre Dame?
Yep.
Maui Invitational was pretty special, but Connecticut at home my junior year. I had 32 points, but more than that, it was like a game day game. So the buzz was incredible. That was sort of like my coming out party. That was my junior year. So that's when I returned from the suspension. I'll remember that feeling forever, because I had sort of like I was sort of like a man on a mission that season. And that was special. That was special.
And what was your favorite moment in the pros?
When I retired, my last game in Orleans, which is where I retired, I was the leading scorer. They gave me a send-off that, you know, as a little kid, you would dream about. And I'm not even exaggerating. I have a picture where the game ends and we're walking off the court and we had just won. And they told me to stay on the court, and they bring my wife and my 2 kids out, and the whole arena stands up, round of applause. They say a few quick things about me, and then they give me the microphone, and I couldn't hold back the tears. That was my last regular season home game for that team, and that was incredible. I'll never forget the way my career ended. Also, it was same season. It was obviously my last season. We were in the playoffs. It was a best of 3 series. We won the first game. We lost the second. So now it's do or die game. There's about 8 seconds left. I have the ball, and I hit a shot to put us up 1. And the other team comes down. They call timeout. About 3 seconds left. My coach subs me out. It could be my last game. He subs me out for defensive purposes. He wants to get length in there. And I just hit the shot to put us up. Oh, man. So I'm like, and you know, his name was Jermaine. I'm like, Jermaine, what the fuck are you doing? Excuse my language.
No, you're good.
And he's like, don't worry, Kyle. Don't worry. Their ball, they run some out of bounds play. Our big guy gets caught sleeping. They inbound it. They score at the buzzer. Game over. Career over.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I'm sitting on the bench. I'm like, oh my God, this is how my career ends. It's how my career ends. Never forget that either. I'll never forget that.
Wow. Anticlimactic, but you'll always remember it with a whimper.
Now, I don't know if I would have made a difference defensively, but
at least give you an opportunity to do that. You know, that's all you ask for.
Yeah.
You've earned that.
My one shining moment to meet someone at the rim. You know?
Oh
man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you guys any last questions you wanted to get before we let Kyle get going? I know it's late on the East Coast.
Well, we have a part of the segment where it's the over-under. And, you know, being that you're part of the club, we have, you know, multiple kids on your end, thinking milk, over, under. How many quarter gallons, half gallons of milk do you have in the fridge for the kids? My guess, because what I have or try to have is usually 3. Over, under, what do you have in the fridge?
Under.
Wow.
Under.
Nice. Kids not drinking milk, or
my daughter still drinks milk. My daughter still drinks milk, but we've limited it recently.
We do almond milk over here in our way, but we live in LA, so of course.
Yeah. Oh man. One last thing, you know, I know we touched on it briefly beforehand, but with Catholic schools, they've survived we survive and we keep fighting because we believe in the education, we believe in the system. And, you know, as somebody who's grown up through the Catholic school education throughout life, you believe in what they're doing in the mission. And we believe in what you guys do, and we'll continue to support what you guys do and put that word out there across what we can.
Thank you very much for that, because I'm the same way. I grew up with the Catholic school system, and now I work in it and I sell it and I believe in it wholeheartedly. And I'm with you, man. We this is what we do, and we get through this together, and we'll make it out the other side tougher.
Yep,
Absolutely.
And anytime, this was fun, guys. If I come back on again, I want to have I want to have a more uplifting, fun conversation, so we can get more into those stories that we didn't tell.
Yeah. I can't wait. We're gonna make notes on that one and make that happen.
Yeah. Anytime, man. This was fun.
Cool.
Anytime, seriously.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, guys.
Man.
Appreciate
Stay
it,
safe out there and take care of that family.
You too. Thank you, guys.
Go Irish.
Go Irish.